taking a closer look at Unidos supermarkets.
Right. We've got some online info, their own website, plus customer reviews.
Exactly. And our goal is really to understand this place from the local point of view. What do people think about the prices, the value, the service?
And the selection too, quality, the general feel of the place, friendliness, all that stuff.
Basically, what makes it tick as a neighborhood grocery store?
It's always interesting putting the official story next to what, actual shoppers are saying. You get a much richer picture.
Definitely. Okay, so kicking things off, Unidos Supermarket started back in 2005.
Okay, nearly 2 decades.
Yeah. And they have 3 locations in Florida. There's Poinciana, Kissimmee, and then Deltona.
And it's the Deltona one where we have a bit more detailed feedback, right?
That's the one. Their website pitches them as a neighborhood grocery store you and your family can depend on.
That depend on phrasing is strong.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're really aiming for that reliable community fixture role.
Totally. And they talk up their selection, specialty and international products, fresh meat, seafood, produce, and so much more.
Okay, so variety is a key selling point for them. The specialty and international part makes you wonder who they're specifically catering to.
Good question. They also mention hot, ready food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, plus catering.
So like a prepared food section. That's pretty common now, but always good to know.
And they have slogans in English and Spanish. We would love to have you visit soon, and visítenos pronto.
Ah, okay. So that definitely suggests a significant Spanish-speaking customer base, which ties into the international products mentioned, perhaps focusing on Latin American goods.
Seems very likely. Maybe the reviews will give us more clues there. Let's focus on Deltona then. The address is 1870 Providence Boulevard.
Got it. And phone number?
It's 386-789-3289. We also saw another number listed sometimes, 386-789-7189.
Okay, good to have both. What about hours? Sometimes those can be tricky online.
Yeah, a little bit here too. One source says Monday to Saturday, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Standard enough.
But their website seems to show slightly different Sunday hours depending on the store. Poinciana and Deltona are listed 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Sundays.
Okay.
While Kissimmee is apparently 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So yeah, for Deltona on a Sunday, 8 till 7 seems right, but maybe worth a quick call just to be sure.
Always a good idea, especially for Sundays. Information online isn't always perfectly up to date.
Right. So let's get into what people are actually saying. Starting with selection, this seems to be a real positive for the Deltona store.
Oh, yeah. What are they saying?
Lots of praise for the variety. People mention Latino and Caribbean products specifically, imported goods, authentic ingredients.
Ah, so that confirms the focus a bit.
Yeah. Grains, spices, teas, and some really specific things caught people's eye, like flan giant avocados.
Yeah, and avocados.
Okay. Also, sofrito, chimichurri, and one reviewer noted these things were sometimes at super cheap prices.
Wow. Finding those specific cultural ingredients and at good prices, that's a huge draw for the right customer. It really explains how they carve out their niche.
Exactly. It seems like they're filling a gap that maybe the bigger supermarkets don't.
Definitely. That combination of specific selection and value is powerful.
So that leads us nicely into price and value overall. And again, mostly positive vibes here.
Good prices, generally.
Yeah, people mention incredibly low prices for the prepared food we talked about. And great prices for groceries compared to, the mainstream stores.
Okay.
The deli gets a shout out for huge servings. And someone even described the produce prices like a flea market.
Flea market prices, yeah, that definitely means good value. That affordability must be a major reason people shop there.
You'd think so. Keeping prices low while offering that kind of specific selection is, well, it's impressive if they can manage it consistently.
It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, so selection and price seem like strong points. What about service?
This is where it gets, more mixed. Some people had good experiences.
Like what?
Some said quick service, staff, or friendly, attentive, the positive stuff you hope for.
Okay, that's good.
But there were definitely some negative experiences reported too. One person called the checkout clerks standoffish, bordering on rude.
Oof, not great.
No. And another shared a really bad story about some burnt pork they bought. They said the staff were unhelpful, the manager didn't call back, just left them feeling unwelcome.
Wow, that's really poor complaint handling.
Yeah. And maybe the most concerning comment was someone flat out saying, don't expect any customer service, especially if you're a gringo.
Ouch. Okay, that's a serious issue if true. Feeling unwelcome based on your background is obviously a huge red flag.
Absolutely. So it's a real contrast. Some people seem fine, others have these really negative interactions. Raises questions about consistency, doesn't it?
It really does. You can have great prices, but if the service is hit or miss, or worse, perceived as discriminatory, that really undermines the neighborhood store feel.
True. Okay, moving on to quality. Again, kind of a mixed bag, related a bit to that service issue. Well, the prepared food generally gets good marks. People seem to like the flavor, temperature, and those big portion sizes we mentioned.
Right, the deli food.
Yeah. But there was one really alarming review about raw ground beef, described as badidididi. Horrible smell.
Oh, wow. That's serious.
Very. And the reviewer claimed, though, unverified, that maybe the refrigerators get turned off at night.
Yikes. Yeah, that's a major food safety concern if there's any truth to it at all. Even as a one-off complaint, bad meat is bad.
Definitely leaves a bad taste, literally and figuratively. And remember that burnt pork story? Another comment mentioned pork being quite burnt more recently, too.
So maybe some inconsistency in the prepared foods as well, despite the generally positive comments. Quality control could be an issue sometimes.
Seems possible. It highlights how important consistency is from fresh stuff to prepared meals.
Absolutely crucial for trust. Okay, what about the ambiance, the feel of the place?
It's described as a small Latino Caribbean grocery right inside a Latino plaza. Sounds like a two-story complex with other interesting Spanish shops.
So it's really embedded in a specific cultural center there. That makes sense.
Yeah. One practical note, parking is apparently tight and aggressive. So maybe be prepared for that.
Good tip. Busy place.
Sounds like it, especially the Del Cafeteria area. It's called Always Busy, a free-for-all. Kind of chaotic because there's no real line.
Ah, okay. So popular, maybe slightly disorganized in that spot. What about the rest of the store?
Well, balancing that chaos, one review did describe the main store area as spacious, clean, well lit with a great variety of products.
Okay, so maybe the deli rush is contained and the actual grocery shopping part is more standard.
Could be. It paints a slightly complex picture of the environment, busy, maybe a bit hectic at the food counter, but the store itself might be quite pleasant.
Interesting. And that brings us to friendliness, which we sort of touched on with service.
Right. And like service, it seems really inconsistent based on these reviews. We have the positive mentions of friendly staff, but they're weighed against those experiences of standoffishness, perceived rudeness, and that really troubling comment about feeling unwelcome if you're not Latino.
Yeah, that variability is tough. It suggests the experience might really depend on who you interact with on a given day.
Exactly. Not really the consistent welcome you'd ideally want from a neighborhood store aiming to serve the whole community.
For sure. A welcoming vibe for everyone is pretty key for building that broad loyalty.
So let's kind of wrap this up. Looking at Unidos and Deltona through this lens of online info, it's definitely a mixed picture.
Yeah, clear strengths and some pretty noticeable weaknesses, it seems.
On the plus side, prices and selection get a lot of positive mentions, especially those specialty and international items. They seem to be hitting the mark there for a specific audience.
Right. That value proposition, getting culturally specific things affordably, that seems to be their core strength. It's likely why they're popular.
But then you flip the coin and you see these inconsistencies in service and quality. Some good experiences, yes, but also some really concerning reports about rudeness, bad complaint handling, and even food quality issues.
And that variable friendliness adds to it. The ambiance sounds like it reflects its busy spot. In that plaza, could be lively, could be chaotic, parking's tight.
So for you, our listener, if you're considering a visit, it's something to weigh up. The appeal of the prices and finding unique items versus the potential for, well, a less than stellar service experience or quality hiccup.
It really highlights that classic challenge for local businesses balancing all these different aspects. Price, selection, service, quality, atmosphere. Getting them all right consistently is hard work.
Definitely. So if you are in the area, the Deltona store is at 1370 Providence Boulevard. Phone is 386-789-3289. And that website we found linked is unidosupermarkets.com.
Yeah. Thinking about all this, it makes you wonder, if you walked in for the first time, what would stand out most? Would the great prices on, say, avocados and sofrito outweigh potentially grumpy service?
That's the question, isn't it? How do we each personally balance those things? What makes a grocery store your store? Is it just the deals and the stuff you can buy?
Or does that consistent quality and feeling genuinely welcome matter more in the long run? Something to chew on, definitely.
A great thought to end on. What matters most in your neighborhood store? Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.